Alright guys, Kyle here with Cedar Mills, Kansas, out in Manhattan, Kansas. We're also with Specialty Resin and Chemicals. Great company, great product. We're going to be covering two different pours today. On this one here, we're going to be doing a seal coat on the bottom. You can see the steel's already in place. And then on the second countertop behind me, we're going to be doing the seal coat for the top, which will be followed by two flood coats. So the main purpose on the bottom piece here, on this piece that's flipped over, is we need to get in and fill those cracks so that way when we flip over to the top side, when we do the first seal and the first flood, any of the seams or hairline cracks that's in the natural slabs itself will already be filled in. So the one that's behind me that you can see has a burn coat as well. That one's already had its lower seal coat on the bottom. So in theory, we should be able to pour on it and not have a waterfall of resin coming out of the bottom. I prefer to just use little block scrapers, so that way I can move the product around. So on this bottom one, we just need to do a little pour. It doesn't need to be a giant flood coat. You'll use a lot of products if that is what you end up doing, and a lot of unneeded, because this is the stage where we'll find out how bad any of the cracks are going through when we seam these. On these larger countertops, we have to seam them in two pieces. It's very, very difficult to find a tree that is 14 foot long as well as over 25 inches straight. And then every time that we go and jump on the mill and we think we have one, it'll just be completely split. Perfect world, everything would be one piece lumber, but in reality, at least here in Kansas, it's hard to come by and have a steady product, a supply to feed our mills, so that way we can do these countertops. Same thing with vanity tops. So as you can see, what I'm doing is just spreading. You probably can't see that well, but all I'm doing is spreading that epoxy around, working it into any of the seams and cracks, and just getting our seal. And this is also really, really important when you're doing kitchen and bathroom vanities, especially kitchen tops, because what you'll do is if you don't seal the bottom up real well, you'll go install this and your dishwasher will make this beautiful piece of lumber turn into a giant U. And the steel that we put into it is also to help with any crowning or anything that may come up. Kitchens are a very, very humid environment, and when you want everything to stay nice and straight, you just kind of do everything that you can to make sure that they do stay straight. Alright guys, so we're going to flip over to this top coat. We'll be moving pretty quick as the resin, when it sits in a bucket like that, resin, it is a heat, and it does create quite a bit of heat. And that's why on your instructions and your label for the product, they give you pot life, things like that, and that all has to do with the amount of time that it takes for it to heat up. And then also, once it starts getting into its tack stage, and basically you're done with it. You never scrape the last little drop out, because usually that would be the part that did not get mixed completely. And so if you ever pour epoxy, fill epoxy, and it doesn't ever set up all the way and harden, usually that's because it is, I've had it before where it's been a bad epoxy, never with a specialty resins brand. This is a very, very solid product. It floats beautifully, and you'll see that once we do a flood coat. But it's real important to follow all those instructions. Do not use that last little bit that's in your jar. It will give you all kinds of problems. But as I was saying, it can either be when you have those soft spots that don't cure all the way. It can be because of a bad A or B part, but the majority of the time it's because it was not mixed correctly. So therefore A and B did not get to actually meet up in the bucket while you're mixing. The other thing you don't want to do is try to pour a 1/2 inch coat at one time. You do want to, just trust me on that one. On some other products we've tried to do big pours like that, and what happens is that the room, the ambient temperature in the room is not cool enough, that the chemical reaction as these start setting up creates so much heat, it will put off toxic fumes. You'll think that everything's going to explode, which it won't, but it's a pretty violent chemical reaction that happens. So it produces a lot of heat. So again, on this top seal coat, we're just moving everything around. Try to be a little bit more even than on the bottom, just so that way our flood coats will take a little bit better. If I do have a hairline crack, typically I will leave a little bit of epoxy beside it, so that way I can come back once it starts setting in. All right, so what I'm doing here is, now that I have the good layer down, like I said, I like to leave a little bit by any of the hairline cracks. So the first little bit I scraped over, those little hairline cracks are soaking in, which is great. It's what we want it to do. And then now what I'll do is just kind of come back and start filling them in again. And it won't fill up all the way, even though I have that seal coat on the bottom. Retape the seams from the bottom again. I'm still going to have some that leaks out. So that's why we don't just go for one pour and cross our fingers, because you'll waste a lot of product to do that, and then you'll have the Niagara Falls coming out the bottom of your table, and that's never fun for anybody. Especially for me, because I got one of my dogs is a shop dog, and he just likes to lay underneath anything that I'm working on. So currently he's back behind over here, laying underneath the table. So he regularly has epoxy in his fur, but you think it'd be like a kid and they'd learn, but they don't. So right now we're about 20 minutes in since I mixed up this batch of epoxy. And I can already feel by working it that I'm starting to hit that tack phase, so I'm not going to get a whole lot more, maybe a minute left here to push whatever I want around, trying to get it in. But you'll start to feel it, and you get used to these kind of little things as you work epoxy more and more. But you'll start feeling it. So in this last short little bit of time I have, I'm just going to try to get any runs out, any spots. Alright guys, so that takes care of the two versions of a seal coat, a bottom seal coat and then a top seal coat. We will be back here in about 3 hours. Once we get past the tack stage, it'll continue to set up, ideally 3-4 hours, depending on humidity, temperature, where you're pouring at is when we want to start doing our flood coats. If it does set up to where it's over 24-48 hours from when you do this, you will need to go across it with some sandpaper, some high grit, somewhere in the 150-220 range. So that way it'll scuff it back up, so that way the flood stages can start sticking again. With that being said, if you do need to do that, and you do need to sand anything, when you sand on epoxy, you'll see it gets real smoky. Don't worry about that. When you go in to do your next coats of epoxy, none of that is going to be there. It looks like you basically just scuffed it and ruined it. Don't worry about it. Epoxy bonds to each other. It's exactly what you want it to do.